Hello, welcome to Never for Function in our Going the Social Distance series, where we chat with professionals, colleagues, and friends from all over the United States and beyond about their perspectives, stories, and thoughts during these dramatically changing times, all while having some fun along the way. I'm your host, Adam Cohen. Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you like what we're trying to do here over at Never for Function, please like and subscribe. Do all the things that the internet people talk about all the time. It would mean a great deal to me. Follow us on our socials. Now let's keep on moving. So here we are, in a world that's dramatically different from yesterday's. I've been hearing from many of you over the last few weeks. Some of us are frightened. Some of us are angry and frustrated. Some of us are just trying to find ways to breathe life and excitement into our day-to-day and stay sane. I think it's really important that we share real human experiences in your stories, and that we find ways not just to survive, but ways to live a life that is never just for function. So we're going to interview some friends and colleagues from all over, like I said, and we're going to try to have some fun. First of all, I would like to introduce one of my closest colleagues and friends and a very important part of the Never for Function family. He is a publishing professional based out of Austin, Texas, with backgrounds in improv comedy and music as well, with touring with the number one 70s show band in the world, and 14 years touring and performing alongside me in our very own pop rock band. Let me introduce to you one of my very close friends, Gabriel Dyson.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
Now, in the planning phases of our very first few episodes with Never for Function, one name immediately came to mind. Our next guest is a very important one, with years of experience as a sponsored rock climber under his belt. Another talented musician, and hailing from San Francisco, California, with his PhD in infectious diseases, I'm more than excited to introduce to you another one of my very good friends, Dustin Glasner.
Hey, how you doing?
Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule and your 12-hour days working in the lab to hang out with us and chat a little bit. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So I got some questions for all of us to kind of round robin and discuss really what is it like out there and what's it like for all of us individuals, because everyone's kind of reacting to this differently. And Dustin, I really would like to start off with you. First of all, what is the DCI based around this COVID-19 pandemic? AKA, what is the Dustin Confidence Index? How are you feeling about it?
So I've been thinking about this a little bit. I think undetermined, it's tough to answer because the response at the federal level versus the state level versus the local level, I think is very different. So depending on which one you're looking at, you're going to get a very different answer. And depending on which aspect of the response you're looking at, you're going to get a very different answer. At least here in San Francisco, the local and the state governments are doing an amazing job. Case numbers have been down compared to what was projected. Yeah, hospitals are short on PPE, but they're managing ventilators and admissions and severe cases pretty well. And it looks like cases aren't really climbing as much as we thought they would. The curve seems to be flattening. So I'm sure everyone has heard the phrase flatten the curve. Seems like San Francisco's doing that pretty well. So we're feeling pretty good here in the Bay Area. It's going to be a matter of maintaining this for another month plus, which could be a difficult ask. Asking people to shelter in place for that long is pretty tough. But we'll see what happens. Right now, we're looking pretty good. Some places are doing better than others. I'll just say that.
That's more than fair. Do you think we're looking at 6 months, 8 months, longer in squashing this curve?
It's tough to say. I think it'll get to the point where people aren't going to want to be stuck inside and not go to rock shows and not go to the movies, not have professional sports and all that fun stuff. It's going to get to the point where that's going to become untenable and people they're going to stop accepting that. So it's going to be a very fine line to walk between when do you start opening things up again versus how soon is too soon. And I'm not sure we have all those answers right now, and a lot's going to depend on the next few weeks. Because of the incubation period of the virus, everything that happens that you see happening in real time is really based on what happened 2 weeks prior to that. Now we're just starting to see the impact of some shelter-in-place orders from other parts of the country. I'm hoping that by sometime in May, we'll have a clearer picture of what's happening. But for sure, for at least the next 3-4 weeks, it's going to be, shelter in place, self-quarantining. We're all going to be stuck inside for a little bit longer. But the hope is that by the maybe by the fall things start shifting back to normal, but it's tough to say.
It's good to hear. How about you, Gabe?
Down here, I guess things didn't really start falling into place until like right around when they canceled South by Southwest. People here were really doubtful that this was like anything to really take serious, and first Facebook pulled out, and then a bunch of other companies pulled out of South by, and then South by canceled. People started planning their own events independently. We're like, we don't need this festival to put it together. We don't need some stupid, flu stopping us. And then, the mayor basically ordered them to shut down all the bars on 6th Street and all the venues, and started closing crowds, making them smaller from 250 to 50 to 25 to, down to 6 now. And it's like, that's when people started really taking it seriously. It's unfortunate to say that, Texans aren't going to take something seriously till you close the bars. But that's just kind of how things go. But that was about 3 weeks ago. It's really been something. This is a really busy city down here, and seeing it go almost to nothing has been real eerie. But it gives me hope that people are actually taking this seriously.
That's crazy. Yeah, I think Virginia has definitely been behind the curve as far as the seriousness factor. We don't have a whole lot of cases yet. One person emailed in saying that a lot of their friends and colleagues were saying, well, the CDC says that groups of 10 can congregate, so we're congregating, which has been very frustrating. My girlfriend having a severe immunodeficiency, and if I come in contact with anyone that may have come in contact with this virus, she could be hospitalized like that. But I think we're slowly coming around.
I honestly have been looking at this like, this is going to sound kind of crass, but I want people to treat this with the same stigma to a degree that people treat herpes, where it's like people get freaked out if somebody says, oh, I have herpes. Everybody freaks out. Group of 10, all y'all going to get herpes. That's it. So
Right.
We can just treat it like that. Maybe people will take it a little bit more seriously. I don't know.
I mean, how serious is it to just go to the beach? How badly do you need to go? How badly do you need to see your friend and your coworker that you saw however many days ago? How necessary is that? And
apparently enough to get herpes.
Well, Dustin, I had another question for you, because you are the top ranking expert that we have access to. So what aspects are you seeing of COVID-19 that are misunderstood? What's the misinformation that is going around that you're seeing, if there is any?
There's a lot of it. Yeah, there's a lot of it. To distill it down to just a few things is challenging. One thing that I know was pretty rampant early on, conspiracy theories about the origin of the virus. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's a bioweapon that China created, or it was a lab-made virus that accidentally got out. Those are definitely not true. There have been studies done to show that this virus is almost definitely naturally occurring. It came from bats, possibly through another animal, but it is almost definitely, and we could say this with pretty near certainty, it is not a man-made virus. It's not a bioweapon. And there's an early study that came out that said that there were 2 different strains of the virus, and one was far more severe than the other one. It's a very controversial study because the differences they saw were so negligible that in most cases we would just be like, no, that has absolutely no bearing on the function of this virus. And they never actually showed that there was any difference in the function. They're just like, well, there are these differences in the genome, therefore they must be different, and that's why these cases are more severe. There's a bunch of reasons why that's not true. There are a bunch of different strains circulating, but they are not significantly different in any real or functional way as far as we can tell. There's a lot of different misinformation out there. Just being on Facebook for 10 minutes, you'll probably catch 5-10 different pieces of news that may not be entirely truthful, and it's difficult to know where to get your information from these days. It's really hard. And honestly, even I think some of the scientists are having a hard time figuring out what is good information, what is reliable information. A lot of the science that's coming out is in the form of what we call preprints. So it's not peer reviewed, but it's technical evidence-based data that's uploaded to these preprint servers where people can go and look at the research and comment on it, but it hasn't been reviewed by the greater scientific community. But this is where a lot of our data is coming from. Most of the time it's good, not all the time. There was an early preprint that said that this virus was somehow genetically engineered with HIV or something like that. Definitely not true. I mean, you could look at this virus if you looked at certain little snippets of the genome, and it could have similarity to like crabs or something. Like you could look at the human genome and be like, oh, look at that, we're super similar to like worms or something, therefore we must be genetically engineered with worms. That's the kind of conclusions people are coming to with some of this information. So there's just a lot. It's tough. It's a challenging time for everyone, scientists included, experts included. There's just a lot we don't know and we don't understand. We're learning it almost at the same rate that the public is. The public doesn't necessarily have the same scientific literacy to understand. It's important to keep in mind that something that may have been said and may have been considered true 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago may not be now in light of new data and new information. So it's tough. It's really hard.
So what I'm getting from you is this is not caused by 5G towers.
No, it's definitely not caused by 5G towers. Not caused by chemtrails. The Earth is definitely not flat. We did land on the moon. All these fun things, not at all related to coronavirus.
Particularly pointed question. Are there any examples of behaviors or preventative measures that you're seeing that just aren't as effective as people think they are?
So the one thing that I see most often, and is probably the thing that bothers me most, is when people wear masks or gloves incorrectly or utilize them incorrectly. So I see a lot of people who will wear like a face mask, whether it's like a surgical mask or an N95 or whatever it is they're wearing, but it's only covering their mouth, which is completely useless because you also breathe through your nose. Your nose also has mucous membranes where the virus is going to get in and infect you. So if your mask is only covering your mouth or if it's hanging off your ear, completely useless. You might as well not be wearing one at all. So I see that pretty often. The other thing with gloves, so unless you're used to wearing gloves, you probably aren't. You're probably still going to be touching your face just as much with gloves on as not with gloves on. So when you're wearing gloves, you want to make sure you're still not touching your face. It doesn't matter that you have gloves on. You probably touch some surface with those gloves. Those are going right onto your face, whether or not it's your bare hand or gloved hand. It's all the same. It doesn't matter. I was doing some emergency shopping, getting some milk for the baby, and I see this guy in the grocery store, and he's got one gloved hand, one bare hand, which is fine. But this guy did not seem to differentiate between the gloved hand and the bare hand, and was just grabbing stuff with both hands, using his phone in both hands. Like, well, he shouldn't even be wearing a glove at all.
Not even, no point whatsoever.
Just absolutely no point at all. So, having a glove on, you can try to train yourself at home to not touch your face with the glove. Be careful what you touch, what you cross-contaminate. And I think that's a lesson that the general public doesn't really, they just don't have the practice with. It's not necessarily their fault, but it's something they're not conscious of. They don't have the practice with it. That's probably the one thing that people are wasting their time on most, is incorrect use of like gloves and masks.
I really hope that guy actually washes his hands after he goes to the bathroom.
That's right. Oh my gosh. That's one of the, I've had this conversation with a few people, and they've just been like, I didn't realize how much men didn't wash their hands before this, which is crazy to me. Like, I at least on Twitter, there are these people who are like, the men's room has never been out of soap until this week. And now it's out of soap. It's like, were they just not washing their hands after they went to the bathroom? It's like, great, thanks, guys. Really glad to be shaking your hand after you use the urinal right there, like.
Yeah. Riddle me this, Dustin. Does sunlight have an effect on this virus? Is that true, or is that BS?
So UV light can inactivate viruses. Now, the studies looking at UV light are, they're very controlled. It's like, all right, we put a UV bulb, a 15-watt UV bulb, this many centimeters away from a surface, and we stuck underneath it. We left it on for this long, and we evaluated how much virus was left before and after, or whatever. It's a little harder to get those sorts of consistent parameters with the sun, right? You have cloud cover, there's particulates in the air that may mess with the penetration of the UV light. The sun is obviously very, very far away. It's not 25 centimeters away, right? So, if you leave something outside in the sun long enough, the UV light will probably inactivate the virus, but I don't necessarily know how long that is.
Right, so this is all theoretical. In a controlled environment, UV light has had some kind of effect.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
Well, let's get into some of the fun questions. So, round robin, for you two, what's the most heartwarming response or heartwarming moment you've seen in response to this pandemic?
Okay, right off the bat, a very good friend. Her name's Anna Sosa. Big shout out, Anna, if you're watching. She has gone out of her way to make masks for people using fabric that she just has like had around. She basically was researching what's medical safe. She got down to the point where she was running out of elastic for the ears, and she found elastic and like a flannel blanket that she had, basically tore this thing apart down to, because she was just like, she's like been wanting to make masks to be able to give them to medical personnel and stuff with EVMS and stuff.
That's awesome.
Absolutely cool. It's
That is
really
awesome.
wild. I've been trying to figure out a way to get her more materials, but it's wild. Like everybody's sold out. Which is a good thing. There's lots of people that are trying to just go ahead and do this and make masks, but it's wild.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a moment, Dustin?
I don't think any particular moment, but just kind of in the same vein as what Gabe was saying. Like I've seen just a lot of like kind of coalescing around an issue by a lot of people. You know, there are a lot of people rallied around kind of the frontline workers right now. It seems everyone's trying to help out whoever they can. Even just staying home is like an act of love, right? Not going out, not like exposing yourself to other people or having people exposed to you is like, really like an act of love, an act of grace. And it's like this really beautiful thing, right? We can like save the world by staying home right now. And I think a lot of people have kind of bought into that, and that's really cool to see. It's pretty nice to see, kind of that we're all in this together mentality. It's cool.
And I hate to say it, but I think here in the U.S., we really needed something to coalesce around. We needed something to kind of dispel or at least counteract or work against this bipartisan toxicity that we've been dwelling in for however long. Let's flip it over then. So what's the dumbest response that you guys have seen?
The spring breakers that left University of Texas at Austin to go to Cabo San Lucas amid the quarantine came back, and 44 of them came back with the virus.
No way.
Yeah,
I did not hear about that. That's insane.
Yeah, this was. We had a very slow growth rate here, and then all of a sudden they came back and it spiked because those kids came back to the city. So
Dang.
yeah, so not the brightest knives in the box. So.
Lose the money that you spent on your spring break trip, or get the virus and potentially die.
Yeah, it's real dumb. It's real dumb.
That's pretty crazy.
Yep.
Dang.
Anything jump to mind for you, Dustin?
Anti-Chinese and anti-Asian sentiment going around, like within the first like few weeks of the virus spreading around the US, there are tons of reports of like Asian Americans in the US being like discriminated against or like, whatever, being harassed, and especially from someone who's A, Asian American, and B, in like the virology and the infectious disease world. I was like, man, people just don't get this. They're just looking for someone to blame because they're uncomfortable, right? It doesn't make it any better or any worse, but like it's just ridiculous. For me, that's like the dumbest response for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been seeing your posts about it for the last couple of weeks, and I guess branding and naming is everything. Calling it the Chinese virus.
Yep, it's all politics. It's all everything is political. People like to say science is political. I mean, it is, right? Who funds the studies? Who does the studies? What's the mindset of people doing the studies? Who names the virus? Who's paying the guy who names the virus? What is the president's agenda when he gets up in his press conference and calls it the Chinese virus? I've actually had some really good discussions with people who think differently than I do about some of these things, and it's been enlightening to hear what their positions are. It doesn't necessarily make me feel better about it, but it at least has given me some insight to what other people may be thinking.
Do you feel like China has any responsibility in kind of how this has been handled worldwide? Do you feel
that's the $1 million question, right? And for me, it's really important to kind of separate China's government from like the people of China, like Chinese citizens and even the scientists and the doctors versus like CCP, China Communist Party. I think it's very important to kind of separate those two things, because on the one hand,
the general population,
right? Because on the one hand, I think the population has dealt with a massive outbreak, a lot of sickness, and a lot of death. A lot of our information about this virus has come and continues to come from Chinese scientists and doctors. it has been really from a scientific point of view, from where I'm standing, a very impressively collaborative effort. Kind of this worldwide, all hands on deck, like every lab that I know switching to work on SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19. Chinese citizens, Chinese doctors, scientists, they played a big role in kind of helping our understanding, and they have certainly suffered just as much as anyone here in the U.S. has. On the other hand, the Chinese government, even back during the original SARS outbreak in 2003, they were hesitant to admit anything was happening, to be open with the global health community, to share data, to share information. And I think some of that has certainly spilled over now. I don't have the full picture of what's happening like on the governmental level, but for sure, it seems that they have not handled things particularly well. I think it will affect what happens in the aftermath of all of this. I'm not an expert on the politics side of things, like foreign relations, but it certainly seems like the Chinese government has not necessarily handled this as well as maybe they should have.
Sure.
For the publishing company I work for, I deal a lot on a day-to-day basis with a couple printing companies that are based out of China, one that's out of Hong Kong, and the other one's out of Shenzhen. It's really interesting because it's like seeing an echo of what they were dealing with months ago. But now at this point where it's happening to us, I actually have most of my reps that are in Hong Kong and Shenzhen reaching out to us, asking if we need anything, if we're okay. I had a rep that was in one of our Shenzhen vendors' offices asking if we needed masks. They genuinely really care, and they're like, they're seeing what we're going through, something that they went through just a few months ago. There's a real big difference between how the Chinese people are handling this versus the government. They're really being very sympathetic over the whole situation because they've just been there and they're still dealing with it.
Right.
It's real interesting.
Well, as we are winding down this portion, do either of y'all have a final statement or anything that you would like to say to anyone watching, or anything that you would like to make them aware of or promote as your kind of last piece here?
One serious thing. So if people have questions about this outbreak, any of the science, if they have questions that may seem dumb, that they don't know who to ask or don't know how to ask, they can go to covid19.fas.org, and they can browse a very large repository of questions that have been answered by scientists, including myself. I've been working on this project for a few weeks now. There's a bunch of scientists who are actively answering questions submitted to the site. So if there's no answer to your question, ask it, and someone will answer it with a verified, reliable source. So covid19.fas.org. It's a great resource if you have questions about the outbreak.
Gabe, do you have any final words for this segment here?
I'll have stuff coming very soon. If you want to be one of the first people to hear that, just follow me on Instagram at @sliceofdyson. And as soon as stuff's ready to go there, I'll be posting about it. We'll be pushing it pretty hard.
Well, Dustin, I know you have a baby that needs attention, and
Yes,
you probably have
definitely
another
do.
12-hour shift tomorrow.
I do.
Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule and your family that requires and needs a lot of your attention right now to share some knowledge and to have some fun with us tonight. You are a saint, and please continue to fight the good fight. We all need it right now, my friend.
It's my pleasure. It's good to see you guys. It's nice to be here to chat a little bit and take a little bit of a break from everything else. This is awesome.
Yeah, dude.
Well, I hope we'll have the chance, assuming that we're able to get this channel going, I'd love to have you back. You just let me know, my friend.
Yeah.
Hey! Oh my God, she's so adorable.
Well, it's good to see you guys.
All right, folks, so we're going to transition to a segment we're calling Closing the Social Distance. A number of you at home have emailed and tweeted and sent in a number of thoughts and feelings and photos and things, and we're going to read through them and comment on some of the things that y'all have sent our way. So one of the major themes that we've been seeing in a lot of these emails and messages is how do we stay sane and how do we breathe some life into what we're doing? Stephanie from Maryland writes, I'm donating blood on April 13th, reading again, teaching online, walking my dog, and purchasing from the booze truck. Yeah, we actually have an adult booze truck that comes through the neighborhood. And then she sent us over picture of her dog, which I'm going to share with you right now. And look at that fancy little boy right there. Super awesome.
That dog's got an attitude.
He is a fancy boy. You know, I think all of us in social isolation right now would certainly love if there were an adult booze truck driving through our neighborhoods. Like, I'm imagining this ice cream truck, music and everything going down the street, and adult men and women running out to buy their beer and wine. So, Gabe, if there was an adult booze truck in your neighborhood, what song do you think would play?
Shot.
That is exactly what I had.
Yeah.
FAO shots.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, 100%.
there would need to be some kind of cheesy, like, MIDI version of Shots by LMFAO playing, and it would be, and I would come running out to buy alcohol. So
For some reason, the other one I had in my head was, skate.
that's a completely different thing. I don't know if I mean there are certain states that might get away with that. Maddie writes, this is specifically about her hair. She says, "My hair has always been a huge security blanket for me. I've been dyeing it since I was in 4th grade and have used it as a way to escape many times. When I was in middle school, it started falling out because of my endocrine system disorder. Super sad. After this, it was a struggle to feel decent about myself every time it would start falling out again. I finally said, screw it, and I shaved my head today, and I love it." And she also sent us a photo of her rocking her new shaved head.
Wow.
And she's killing it.
That's bold. That's awesome.
Corey, my girlfriend, immediately said, you know, she clearly has the right head shape for that, and she's rocking it. So power to you, Maddie. And, you know, I think that's something that we're seeing all over the place. You know, we're seeing people reinventing themselves. They're going crazy inside, and they're just doing drastic things that they can never get away with at work. I mean, Maddie, if I'm being honest, I'm not rocking this mustache because it is a good choice for me. This is a boredom mustache right here. This is a sanity mustache. So I'm feeling you, and I almost buzzed my head the other day because I was going crazy. So there you go. So while a lot of the messages that we have been receiving are about, you know, how people are staying sane and how people are, you know, trying to entertain themselves. Stephanie mentioned earlier donating blood to get a little extra income. I actually saw a couple people mention that. Some have been focusing on their challenging situations and these things that they're facing and like the struggles that they have. Liz from Virginia wrote us saying, "This truly is a season for living day to day. I've had some dark days, especially at home with the kids where I felt straight up trapped. I've found so much help in group chats with friends, the House Party app, which is a great app if y'all are looking for some fun to have for your virtual happy hours at home. The Bible app where you can do devotionals with people mobily. I need community and interaction. It's hard, dude. If I force myself to move daily or try something new, it really does help." She later continues, "Also, I don't think a lot of couples or even friend pairings are viewing this the same. My husband and I have way different viewpoints on how far this quarantine should be. My idea is if you don't live with them, you shouldn't be around them unless it's legit needed. He doesn't see it that way, and it's very frustrating." You know, and I think that's true for a lot of us. You know, I mentioned earlier that I had a bunch of people talking to me about how people are using the 10-person rule as if it's not above 10 people, then you're allowed to do it, versus discouraging meeting people outside of your direct living quarters, which is, you know, I'm more along those lines. I think if you don't live with them, you probably shouldn't be interacting with them. And with that being said, Liz did follow up with me later, and she just needed to put it across our email that homeschooling is damn awful. So,
New math is the worst.
oh yeah, I'm so glad that I do not have children. I do not have to teach these new asinine ways of doing math. You know, I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time, and teachers and educators were some of my favorite guests because they work so hard and they are so stressed out, and educators had a huge role in my life in helping me become the person that I've chosen to become. And, you know, it was such a treat to just sling bottles of wine and sling cocktails to help them take the edge off the insanity of teaching the future youth. And it's just so disappointing to me to imagine, where our country is going with devaluing educators. And, it's so wonderful to see people treating them like the heroes that some of us know that they are. So
Yeah.
I also have an anonymous message sent from a hospital worker.
Oh, wow.
That wanted to kind of talk about their experience, but also remain anonymous so it's not officially on the record. They write, "I never imagined in my life I would be in a situation where I was considered essential. I'm fortunate that for my household, nothing in my life has changed, but I can't say the same for my friends and family. One of the biggest joys I have is that I'm part of the team. I enjoy doing high complexity testing, analyzing everything that comes out of your body to help determine a diagnosis. I wake up every day not knowing what I'm walking into at the hospital. One of the things that frustrates me is when I hear that I'm not really frontline. I don't have direct patient care working in the laboratory, so some people don't consider me frontline, but I interact with everyone who does interact with a patient. Being in the medical laboratory field is a thankless job. No one knew we existed until this pandemic began. Everyone thinks doctors and nurses run your testing, but we're the ones with the microscopes and the plates trying to grow bacteria and viruses and come to solutions. One of the biggest issues we hear is there's not enough testing, which is absolutely true, but they're not addressing the lack of medical laboratory workers that are in the country, especially I omitted their region for an anonymity, but they continue. We're the lowest paid area in the entire country. We get paid less than our colleagues in other departments with the same level of education. All of the allied health workers should be treated with the same level of respect. I love the nurses, the providers, the ER techs that come into the lab, so I don't think I'm knocking them. They're my buddies. But all in all, you can't create a diagnosis without us. Without laboratory testing, your doctor is literally just guessing. You can't run a hospital without the lab rats either. But one of the things that I'm loving is that old school skills are returning because of COVID-19. People are learning to cook from scratch, learning how to sew. They're learning how to repair their vehicles. They're reading books instead of staring at social media all day. Kids are playing in their backyards instead of gaming consoles. They're learning to make do with the new life we're all facing with what they have, and I love it. It goes with any profession. If you're not working through it, and if you're not experiencing it, and if you haven't done it yourself, you really don't know the intricacies of how an industry runs and how many people and how many different kinds of people it takes in order to make it function. We're really seeing what it takes to have a functional healthcare system. And it's awesome that, just like with 9/11, we have a whole new segment of workers in this country and hopefully across the world that are being treated like heroes. And hopefully that's not something that just kind of disappears after all this. Hopefully it'll stick around for a little bit.
People can be a little bit more appreciative of the stuff that they're not seeing. Yeah.
So that was super cool and very brave to kind of send that our way without,
Absolutely.
When a lot of these people are kind of told, don't say anything on the record. So thank you so much for sending things in. So the good news is as we've said before, social distancing does not mean social isolation. Many of you at home have been finding awesome ways to have a great time and to stay connected. So Gabe, I'm excited to share with you, we got a submission from our friends in Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
All our friends in Tennessee. Basically, they've been doing virtual hangouts and happy hours most nights. There's our buddy Drew and Candace.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Puppy.
That's great.
Corey.
Yeah.
Sipping their PBR and doing things the right way.
That's awesome. That's really good to see.
And, we have an outstanding invitation, us and the whole band, to kind of pop in because they have been playing Thunderstruck like every night.
No.
I think we owe them one.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah, dude, I would love to see them. That'd be fantastic. I got to, on the way out to moving out here to Austin, I got to drop in on them back in September, and it was just so good to be able to see everybody. Even just for an evening to be able to just go out and have a beer. I miss everybody out there. I'd love to have a night just doing a group chat, just having some fun. Maybe playing Cards Against Humanity or something.
It's wild. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but when you're in a touring band, even if you're not in a huge touring band, there are all these incredible personalities you meet in traveling through these big towns and small towns, and in many cases, the small towns are more interesting than the big towns because you meet these incredible people. I'll never forget us touring through Tennessee and needing a place to stay, and Drew and friends, as shown in this episode, offering to take us in and let them sleep on their floor, and their girlfriends and friend girls cooking us breakfast the next morning, and it's crazy.
Those were some really good times, and just everybody, they're very good people. Those kinds of lifelong friends that you end up making that you don't get to see too often,
So with that being said, we've been receiving a lot of submissions and a lot of emails and a lot of messages about everyone's individual experiences, how they're staying sane, how they're having a great time. If you would like to rant at us, if you would like to preach to us, if you would like to send a video of you trying out Thunderstruck with your friends, anything and everything, we would love to see it. Please email us at goingthesocialdistance2020@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at neverforfunction. We would love to see it. As I mentioned earlier, it's more important than ever before that we share real human stories and real human beings' experiences so that we all feel connected and understand that we're not in this alone, and that there is a wide range of experiences and how people are dealing and feeling this pandemic. So thank you all at home for submitting, and please keep it coming. Folks, thank you so much for watching. Like I said earlier, if you're enjoying what we're trying to do, please like and subscribe. Now more than ever, it's extremely important that we find ways not just to survive this current pandemic, but truly find ways to live lives never for function. Kick it, Gabe.